Well, meanwhile, the U.S. president arrived in the last of his three-nation Middle East tour on Thursday. Like in Riyadh and in Doha, Donald Trump's focus in the United Arab Emirates was also on business. Now, the Emirati president announced plans to invest $1.4 trillion in the United States over the next 10 years, notably in the fields of technology, artificial intelligence, and energy. And though there was little mention of the situation in Gaza specifically, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed said that the UAE is, I quote, keen on continuing to work with Washington to achieve peace and stability in the region. Well, on top of lucrative business deals, then, another element that all of Donald Trump's Middle East visits have had in common is his flattery for the region's leaders. From hailing the physical appearances of Syria's interim president and the Qatari emir, to insisting that he has no doubt that the U.S.-UAE relationship will get stronger under his leadership, behind his complimentary remarks perhaps lies a sign of Washington's shifting international priorities. For more on this angle, then, we'll cross to our Washington correspondent, Fraser Jackson. Hi there, Fraser. So with these Middle East visits, is Trump then officially realigning the United States' global partnerships?
Well, the American focus is increasingly moving away from Europe and other traditional allies, as made evident by Donald Trump's choice for his first visit, really. Traditionally, most presidents choose Canada, Mexico, or a European ally for their first foreign trip. But just as in his first term, Trump has spent the week touring oil-rich Middle Eastern nations and brokering financial deals along the way. The trip has been relatively light on foreign policy and much more economic focus, really, with the U.S. president boasting hundreds of billions of dollars worth of contracts between U.S. companies like Boeing and Raytheon and the Gulf nations of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, where he is wrapping up that trip now. Saudi Arabia rolled out the lavender carpet for Trump as they looked to sweet-talk the U.S. president, really, whose family, of course, have numerous business ventures linked to the country as well. De facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, used his influence as well at one point over Donald Trump to bring about the rare spot of foreign policy news that has come out of this trip so far, coupled with a phone call from Turkish President Erdogan. Trump's relationship with the man his predecessor vowed to make a pariah on the world stage led to the US lifting sanctions on Saudi ally Syria and a meeting with the country's interim president, who up until December, remember, was wanted by the US to the tune of $10 million. So take a listen to Trump addressing his relationship with Mohammed bin Salman, the leader of Saudi Arabia.
Great partners, no matter who we look to, and we have great partners in the world, but we have none stronger and nobody like the gentleman that's right before me. He's your greatest representative. And if I didn't like him, I'd get out of here so fast. You know that, don't you? He knows me well. I do. I like him a lot. I like him too much. That's why we give so much.
Well, Trump's compliments continued at the next stop on the tour, which was Qatar, where the emir signed the largest deal that U.S. plane manufacturer Boeing has ever received. And that was followed shortly after Trump showered him with the ornate building, both with compliments as well. Now, Trump's appreciation of the grandeur on display by the Gulf nations will likely not go unnoticed by European leaders, who, of course, are worried about his wandering eye and keen to keep his mind focused on Europe and the issue of the war in Ukraine. And it's fair to say the Gulf nations have really left big shoes for the Brits to fill, for example, when Trump visits the UK later in the summer.
So, Fraser, as you mentioned very clearly there, diplomacy arguably has not been the first priority, but it also has not been completely ignored. We just heard comments from Donald Trump again in the UAE earlier. He said that the U.S. and Iran have, I quote, sort of agreed on the terms of a nuclear deal. Iran, in the meantime, had also said previously that it would be willing to make some concessions then to reach that deal. I imagine that's what the U.S. president is referring. So what might those concessions be?
Yeah, Trump's saying that Iran has, quote, sort of agreed to a nuclear deal. Unclear exactly what he means by that, but a top Iranian advisor to the Ayatollah told NBC earlier in the day that, quote, Tehran stands ready to get rid of its stockpiles of highly enriched uranium that can be weaponized, agreed to enrich uranium only to the lower levels needed for civilian use, and allow international inspectors to supervise the process. Now, in exchange, Iran wants a total lifting of US sanctions on the country, and if that sounds familiar, that's because it is very similar to the Iran nuclear deal that Trump pulled out of during his first term in office. But there is still some daylight, however, between the Iranians and the Americans. Trump insisting that Iran, quote, must stop sponsoring terror, halt its bloody proxy wars, and permanently and verifiably cease pursuit of nuclear weapons. That's what he said in Saudi Arabia earlier in the week. Now, Trump is hoping as well that Qatar, where he just left, will wield its influence over Iran to get the deal over the line. He was at a state dinner on Wednesday night where he said during his remarks, I hope you can help me with the Iran situation. He said it's a very perilous situation and we want to do the right thing. Of course, Qatar has also been on the list of nations that's been trying to sweeten its relationship with the US. In recent years, they've tried to position themselves as mediators for numerous issues, including, of course, the war in Gaza. But there's also been that recent offer of a $400 million plane for Donald Trump to potentially use as Air Force One before being given to his presidential library. And that has caused some serious concern here in the United States of corruption, not only from Democrats, but even from some staunch Trump supporters as well.
Fraser Jackson, our correspondent in Washington, thank you very much for that roundup.